I'm Sam, and I'm an OpenSciEd teacher and facilitator. And today we're here to talk about the Lesson 9 from the Bath Bombs unit. Now, I can admit that this lesson definitely takes a hard right turn, and it can be confusing for both teachers and students as to why are we teaching this lesson. So in this video, let's take a look at, well, not only how did we get here, but how can we help our students to see the importance of this lesson. So how did we get here? In the last lesson, we figured out a lot. We figured out that we all have a lot of ideas about what the particles of the bath bomb and the water might be doing when the particles of the gas are created. But we really don't know who's right. So we looked at a reading from Dalton because just like us, Dalton also studied particles. And at the end of the lesson, we walked away with a lot of ideas for future investigations. So now we're wondering, does heating liquid water produce a new substance in the gas bubbles that appear? Let's take a look at a lesson at a glance to see how we're going to get our students to answer this question. This lesson is an investigative lesson, and it takes about 2 class periods. It requires about 15 minutes of preparation, and there are hands-on investigations. Now, if you're not allowed to use open flames in your classroom, there is a student-facing video that can be found on the OpenSciEd website. On day 1, we started by capturing bubbles from water we are heating. We decided to use the flammability test to test the gas that we captured. We see that the flame goes out, but is it really because the gas can extinguish the flame? We also notice that a clear liquid is being collected from the heated water. But we know there are other clear liquids in the world. So, in order to prove what the other clear liquid is, we collect information about 3 clear liquids to determine their density, which we know is a property. On day 2, we begin by analyzing and interpreting the data we collected. We determine the density of the clear liquid, and we end the day by evaluating and revising 2 student arguments. We figure out a lot. We figure out that the density is determined as a ratio of mass to volume, which is considered a unit rate. And we know that's constant or is a property for any substance. We also figure out that the gas produced by the heated water is made of the same type of particles as those in the water that we started with. Let's take a look at some key moments to see how we can help our students to navigate through this lesson. So beginning with the navigation, because we always are going to get this question, how did we really get here? I recommend starting with our consensus model. I have my students kind of do a gallery walk of their artifacts, and I ask them to look at all the questions that we were asking at the end of lesson 7 and looking for patterns in our question, what's a word that we kept asking about? And when we really zoom in on these questions, we notice that we're all wondering about particles. So from here, we then made a model to show what we thought the particles were doing. But really, we were unsure of whose ideas were right. So in order to move forward from here, we read about Dalton, who was also studying particles just like us. At the end of this reading, we decided that we wanted to do 2 new investigations. One was adding heat to water, and a second was running electricity from a battery through the water. So then I asked my students, so why are we testing the water? And hopefully this navigation will also help your students to see the importance of this lesson. A second key moment is still on day 1. This is in part 2, where we carry out the property tests on the gas from the heated water. I always start by having my students make observations of the setup. I have them draw it. And I find that this is really important because they're going to use those observations later on at the end of this lesson. I also have them record data from the flammability test. Now, I find that it's really important that as a teacher, my job right now is when we test the flammability, I need to help my students problematize this test. Was it really the gas that put out the flame, or might it have been something else? Have the students really consider those observations that they saw, because when you look, this setup that you're looking at might be actually like forcing the gas out. And this force might be what's causing the flame to go out. So we also notice that there's this liquid that's being collected on the other side. And students are going to say right off the bat that, yeah, it's water. But one of the SCPs, or science and engineering practices, that we are really focusing on in this unit is collecting evidence. And so at this point, we really need to help our students to see, do we really have evidence to prove that this clear liquid over here is water, or do we need to collect more? That brings us to part 4, which is on day 2. We've already collected some data about clear liquids in the world around us: rubbing alcohol, glycerin, and water. When it comes to the analyzing and interpreting data on day 2, you really want to be working with your math teacher to see if you can align the topics of unit rate and graphing, to either have this happen in tandem with the lesson so that they're teaching this topic at the same time you are, or to have it happen before the lesson. If it happens before the lesson, or maybe even during the lesson, see if your math teacher uses notebooks. My math teacher definitely does. And I asked the math teacher if they will allow their students to bring their notebooks to class, because when it comes time to analyze and interpret this data, my students, I find them digging through their backpack to quickly look through their math notebook to remember what they've already learned about unit rate and how they can apply it to what they see happening here. And it's here that they have this really like mind-blowing aha moment, like, oh my gosh, density is a property because it's a unit rate, and here's what we've been learning about in math class, and it's so cool. We end the day on day 2, which is part 6, arguing from evidence. Now, I really recommend that you don't skip this part because it's a great formative assessment. What you have the students do is you have them evaluate and improve 2 alternate students' arguments. And it's here that my students report that this is where their ideas really begin forming and solidifying about the components that are needed for an argument, which is what we had developed those ideas on our poster in lesson 2, that we need claim, evidence, and reasoning. But when they look at other students' arguments, it's like, oh my gosh, I totally get it. I see the parts that are missing, and now I know how to fix this. And now, Miss Stewart, like, I see what you were seeing, and I get this. So I recommend don't skip this part. So what are some tips and tricks to help my students get through this lesson? On day 1, in part 3, when we have our students problematize, plan, and carry out this new investigation, what we're having them do is we're having them look at 3 different clear liquids, common liquids that are found in the world around us: glycerin, rubbing alcohol, and water. Now, we are going to have them collect information about the density, which will require them to use graduated cylinders to find the volume. And in my experience, students have never used graduated cylinders to find volume. So I find that having the students practice reading graduated cylinders before completing the experiment can be really helpful. I'll set up little stations around the classroom, and at each station there's a station number, and on the back of the station number is the answer key. And so they're getting really quick feedback on how they're able to read the meniscus. Something else I do with my students is I do color the liquids. I color the alcohol red, I color the water blue, and I leave the glycerin clear. This will help my students to better identify the different liquids, and also helps them to read the meniscus better. Now, I understand that adding food coloring can change the density a little bit, but the amount that the density is changed is so minuscule, it really does not affect the outcome in the end. Finally, when you assign groups to measure the different amounts of liquids, I use Post-its to assign the ranges. Because when you're setting up this lab with the students, there are so many moving parts and variables that just by putting a little Post-it that says this group is going to measure this range and this group is going to measure this range, it really does help my students to remember what they're supposed to be doing. One more final suggestion in part 3 is, are your students struggling to complete this lab? There's a lot of data to be collected. Something I've done in the past to help my students is I'll walk my students through gathering the data about the water, because all students are going to gather data about the water, and then I'll have them try the glycerin and the rubbing alcohol on their own. In part 4, they're asked to analyze and interpret the data. Now, for me, I know that my students struggle with making graphs. So if your students also struggle with making graphs, consider using Google Sheets. Google Sheets not only makes the graphs, you can use different colors, and those colors can match the color of the liquids that you dyed the liquids. So in this picture below, you'll see that I have blue. The blue is representing water, the red represents water or rubbing alcohol, and the black represents glycerin. You can also have Google Sheets overlay the graphs that can also help you with interpretation, which can be seen in this 4th graph below. Word wall management. Your students are going to add a bigger definition of what density really means, and you're going to want to get that on the word wall as well. You're going to have them talk about the ratio of mass to volume, and that it's a property, and that will be happening for any sample of any substance. A word that you will encounter is meniscus, but you don't have to get that on the word wall. Finally, some poster management. You are creating a lot of posters, especially if you choose to create posters of the graphs. At the end of this lesson, you can throw away both the graphs and the data tables that you do make. I know we started this video talking about this hard right turn that we make, but with some skillful navigation, we can help our students to see the importance of this lesson. Keep in mind that this lesson is really helping our students to grapple with their understanding of properties and what is happening at a particle level when properties don't change, which is so important to the understanding of what is actually happening when particles do change, which will happen in the next lesson. So I look forward to seeing you in lesson 10.